my name is Katie McInnes, and we're here in my kitchen on my farm near Clearwater, Manitoba. My husband and I farm at the Dogs Run. Today we're going to be looking at how I do my soap. It's a method called cold process soap making, and if you follow along, you'll learn a little bit about how soap is made. Soap is a mixture of fats and lye, and when those two components mix together, they have a chemical process that's called saponification, and that creates soap. You can use all kinds of fats. Traditionally, animal fats have been used, and vegetable fats are also a common choice. I use a little bit of both, and I use several different things in my recipe that I developed myself. One of the ingredients is lard from our own pasture-raised pigs. It's the leaf lard, which comes from around the internal organs of the pig, and it's very clean, it's rendered, and it makes a really beautiful soap. I also use castor oil, sunflower oil, olive oil, and shea butter, all organic, and these are products that I have to get transported in because obviously we're not growing these things on the farm. An important ingredient is lye, which comes in a crystal form and is mixed with water to create your lye water solution. That makes a caustic chemical, so you need to be very careful when you're soap making not to get it onto your skin because it can cause burns. But once that lye mixture mixes with the oils and has the chance to create soap, it's no longer caustic and becomes soap. We're also going to be using some essential oils and natural clays to color the soap and to scent the soap. I almost forgot coconut oil, which is one of the important ingredients that I use as one of my major fats in my soap. Okay, so I have made my own wooden soap molds, but because the soap will stick to the wood, I have to line my soap molds. I use butcher paper for that purpose, and I make my liners for each batch. They fit into the mold, hopefully really nicely, and create a barrier so that the soap as it's setting won't stick to the mold. And that means that I can reuse my molds over and over and over. So we're going to do 3 of these all together for a batch of about 60 bars of soap. So the first ingredient that I'm going to start warming up for our oils is the lard, which I have rendered, measured, and frozen already. So I know that this is the exact right amount for my recipe, which I've developed for exactly this many bars of soap. So I'm going to turn that out into my pot. And you can come and have a look. I'm going to put it on the lowest possible heat on my stove. So that's going to start slowly melting this lard, which you can see is nice and snowy white. So the next ingredient I'm going to be measuring out is the coconut oil, which I have in my 5-gallon bucket here. It's very important in soap making to have your ingredients measured very precisely. So I'm using a digital kitchen scale, and I have 64 ounces of coconut oil to scrape out, which I won't make you watch. So I've got my coconut oil all measured out, and I'm going to add it to my pot. It can also start melting. Next ingredient is castor oil, which helps create really nice fluffy bubbles in the soap. It's also a very moisturizing ingredient, very thick oil. So you pour carefully and measure. And we're going to add that to our warming oils. Next ingredient I'm going to use is organic olive oil. And same thing, we're going to add it to our oils to warm up. And measuring carefully. And I'm also using organic sunflower oil as the last of my oils. And then I've got one more ingredient to add, which will be the shea butter. So the last ingredient is shea butter, which is a highly moisturizing ingredient. I'm using it at, I think it's 8% in my soap, which is fairly high, but it makes for a really nice moisturizing bar of soap. So I'm measuring that out. So I've measured out my shea butter, and because it's a bit thicker, it's going to take a little longer to melt, so I better get it into my pot so it starts warming up. We've got the oils heating up really, really slowly in our pot. We've still got our big chunk of frozen lard in the middle, which I might cut up. But we're heating our oils at a very, very low temperature. So they're gonna warm up, and we're gonna make our lye solution, which then is going to need to cool down. Measured out my water to make my water and lye solution. I've got the proper amount in there. And next I'm going to measure my lye. Maybe. And I know that it's about to the top of this, but I'm going to make sure I get it exact. So these lye crystals are dry right now, but as soon as I add them to my water, they're going to heat up and become a caustic substance, so we do need to be careful in our next step. So we're going to mix our water and lye solution. For safety, I'm going to open the window to create some ventilation. I'm going to wear gloves. Oh, first I'm going to put on a mask and gloves. And I'm putting the solution into a sink full of cold water because it's going to heat up and we want it to start to cool down. I'm pouring slowly and stirring as I go. I make sure it's really well mixed. We're going to leave that in the cold water to cool. As the oils heat up, the lye solution cools, and we're hoping to have them meet at about the same temperature in the middle, and that's when we will mix the two together to create the soap. So we're going to get a temperature check. We've just mixed our lye together, and the temperature's quite high. So we've got the cold water around it. We might need to periodically add more cold water so that it cools. And we'll check our temperature on our oils as they're heating up. So they're quite a bit cooler at the moment. And we've got a long way to go. I'm going to cut this into chunks so that it melts a little bit faster. So we're going to be making 3 different varieties of soap today, 1 in each mold. So I'm going to measure out my essential oils next for the scents. This is bergamot. It smells kind of like a citrusy, flowery deliciousness. And for a recipe, you need quite a bit of essential oil. We're not talking about drops here, we're talking about tablespoons. So do purchase these in fairly large quantities. Next is grapefruit. Fir needle. It smells like Christmas trees. doing that, and I'll mix those together. For the grapefruit, which the grapefruit essential oil has quite a yellow color, so I'm going to add a yellow clay to go with that. And my bergamot I mix with a French pink clay. And I'm mixing those together, and then we're going to, when our soap mixture is ready, mix them in. To create our colored soaps. Okay, so we've got our oil heated up to just around 100 degrees, and our lye solution is just a little bit above 100 degrees. We want our two solutions to be within about 10 degrees Fahrenheit of each other. So we're in that range. I like to mix them at around 100. So now we're going to pour the lye solution into our fat solution. I'm going to strain it just in case there's any undissolved little crystals. And you can come and film this part, and we're going to see that the reaction starts right away. It starts to get kind of cloudy. And I'm going to use a hand mixer to mix them together. Yeah, you can see. So that cloudy solution is starting already. We want to make sure they're really well mixed, and we're going to get it to just the right consistency. So we're getting closer to the right consistency. We're looking for sort of a really thin custardy kind of thing. It's called trace, soap trace. And that's when we can kind of make tracing marks on top of the soap when we mix it. So we just need to go a little bit. Yeah, so I'm happy with that. Now we're gonna start pouring some of the soap into our molds and some into our solution to make our different colors. I'm carefully pouring these about halfway full. This is how I make my designs in my soap. I mix the colors into the white soap, pouring them in. After they've been mixed. So that's our fir needle, our grapefruit, and our bergamot. And now I'm going to mix my clays and my essential oils in. Mixing really well. It's called a drop swirl technique. So I'm going to mix into my already poured soap, and it's going to create cool little patterns in the soap. Everyone's unique. You can see that it's getting quite thick as I'm working. So I'm going to keep moving with each one. And then for two of the types of soaps that I'm doing today, I'm gonna add some dried farm flowers on top to decorate them. I don't put them inside the soap solution because the chemicals cause them to go brown. So I just keep them right on top. Sort of sprinkle them, and they'll get stuck into the soap. So these are going to set in the molds for at least 48 hours before I take them out, and then they'll continue to dry, and the soaps will cure, which just means that they evaporate their water content and become harder, ready to be used as soap. That whole process takes about 4 weeks or so. But we're gonna move these downstairs, and I'll show you some finished soaps, and we'll cut them up so that you can see that too. So I've got some finished logs of soap. This one is eucalyptus and black charcoal. And I'm going to use my handy dandy soap cutter, which has a guitar wire here, to cut the soap. Cut it into blocks. It's got a stopper so that all the blocks end up being the same size, which is great. And I trim off my end pieces to get a nice straight start. And then I'll cut up into bars. So once the soaps have cured, I label them and they are ready for sale and use for your armpits. So thanks for watching this little soap making tutorial. I hope you've learned a thing or two about cold process soap making, and I hope you'll consider washing your hands in the future.